Hi, and welcome to Coach's Corner, where systems matter and both personal and professional learning and development is beneficial for everyone and essential for some. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit the notification bell. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, we're joined here with someone that can't hear actually today. He's such a hard head that he won't go see anyone, so I'm going to have to yell into the microphone. So if it's a little bit louder today, it's because we have patient no ears. But we are joined today with Brett Zandis, or better known as Coach Little Z23, and today we're going to be discussing your after-school program and how you used to run it with the Exemplary Performance and the Quality Program.
Yeah.
And then we'll also go in and talk about, and then we'll combine it and talk a little bit about it as well. As you guys know, he's been super successful. I mean, to help 37 million kids, to help 10 million adults, and it's still growing as we speak, is numbers that I can't even imagine. There's only 7 billion. There's 7 billion people in the world, and he's helped. I think it was like 10% of that.
That's a lot less.
Well,
I can't hear, and he can't do math, but whatever.
Yeah, but it's quite truly amazing to think that someone has done all of that and still not known. It doesn't compute for me, but eventually he will be known, and everyone that's been here from the beginning will understand why. So I'm happy to talk to you about it and get started. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, so I think we're going to talk about Consult for Kids, which is one of our businesses. And I also just want to say, but it started as an after-school program in our school district. And because we were doing some of the best things in the state and the nation, the state came in and said, hey, will you start going to these different regions, which there were 11 of them. And we did that on our district's dime. And then it turned into a business. And so that's when we really started to create things around Consult for Kids, where we named stuff and whatever. Because, we still had, I had 223 employees. We had 10 sites. We were serving over 10,000 kids a year and their parents for several years in our school district before, Consult for Kids kind of morphed into itself. So some of the stuff we already had.
Okay.
But others of it, we said, let's name it. And it's funny because we're kind of going through that now.
Yeah.
With some of, the stuff that we're trying to, make formal. So for us, when it's small, it's like, oh, well, if you call it tomato or tomato, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But when you're starting to, go bigger or whatever, and I think it's funny that you say, like, well, how would people not know if you've served 40 million kids? Because it's nothing. It's not a spit in the ocean.
Right.
And it's in our little genre, right?
Yeah.
And so after school programming by itself, there's only 150,000 after school professionals, period. There's not more than that, right? And they probably serve on average, 20 kids per. So whatever that winds up being. But that's why we're going to start opening it up to what we call youth champions. Anybody who works with youth. So you could be a youth pastor, you could be a parent, you could be a babysitter, you could be a coach, you could be an after-school professional, you could be a teacher, you could be, doesn't matter, anybody who works with youth.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about that before. Most systems we have are universal.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, we're talking about the Nifty 9. That's not necessarily universal to, let's say, Taco Bell.
Right.
But we could do a form of the Nifty 9, I'll bet you, based off of, once I found out what was going on over there, I could create a quick system that says, okay, well, it's the nice 9, or it's the, Super 7, or the tricky 3, or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So
that would be the only thing that I would say is that, it kind of had morphed into stuff. And then when you start taking it out to others, you have to systematize it. Because now you're going, not only deep, but you're going wide, and in some cases really wide when you start talking, at a national level.
Right, absolutely. That's crazy. So can you first talk to us about, what the exemplary performance is? I know you kind of just touched base about the Nifty 9, but you could talk about that first.
Yeah, so we just said, to exemplary performance. So if you take what we call a perfect player, they have to perform, right? And so they have to give some effort, but they also have to have performance. Yeah. And so we had developed, and we said, well, then it should be exemplary performance.
Right.
And so, as we always do, we systematized it and we broke it down into 9 sections. And within those 9 sections, then there's obviously categories and different things of that nature that you would do to master each section, because we want to go one step at a time. I don't know the exact saying, but try to eat an elephant other than one bite at a time, you're in trouble, that kind of thing. And that's our philosophy. We want to break it down. If we need, in the perfect world, we go 1 to 2 to 3. But if we have to break it down 1.1, 1.12, we'll do that as well.
Okay.
Whatever makes sense. And so the 9 categories there is, we start with professionalism, right? Because this is an after-school professional or a teacher that we're talking about that's working with the kids, right? Yeah. So how do you become professional or professionalism? The next one is safety with the kids. How do you do different things like line of sight? And we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And then you have the third one, which is managing the environment. Okay. Then you have the fourth one, which is behavior guidance. So if the kid's a little bit wacky, a lot of people stop the whole class and deal with them, and you can't do that. There's 20 other kids or 30 other kids. And then we have the fifth one, which is I think that's 5. Yeah. Positive discipline. So instead of just hammering on a kid or yelling or screaming or always punitive, where it's a punishment, then, how do you do that in a more positive direction?
Okay.
Right? And then we talk about holistic instruction. How do you actually teach?
Okay.
Right? Like, how do you actually teach people?
Yeah.
And then within that, you have what we call our debrief, and we talk about it all the time, and that could be a debrief or a reflection or whatever, but getting them to solidify their learning.
Yeah.
Also in there is the direct and tell. Right, versus the questioning techniques. That's what we call that.
Yeah.
And then there's transitions. So how do you transition from one thing to another?
Okay.
Is that 8 or 9?
That was 9.
Okay, well, good. Because I was like, I can't think of another one.
That was all 9. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could keep count.
I was like, I don't want to take my shoes off.
And then can you now discuss what the quality program is as well?
Yeah, so what we did is, if you look at after school programming, which is where we started, it was, there was nothing. So act like you're free falling from a plane or no plane or just free falling period, and you're trying to build a plane. And so again, we decided, well, how do we do this step by step versus, right, that's a difficult task. And so the wording's kind of goofy, but it works for what we're doing.
Okay.
And so we call it the Super 7 or the Elite 8. And I'll start with the Elite 8. It's just one more thing. And when I talk about the 7, we'll just add one more thing to it. Because once a week, teachers were getting in service back in the day, and we would get an extra hour or so with the kids. So we would do like a team challenge with them, and then we would start our regular day, or sometimes we'd put it in the middle of the day, but it would be like, Joe's group versus Ethel, or boys versus girls, or teachers versus kids, or, red shirts and, whatever. And we had a lot of fun with that, and we would do, points. Because it was once a week, the in-services were built in, the trainings the teachers were getting, we were able to, do a theme or something like that for a month, and then count it up at the end, and they would get, pizza or something like that.
Okay.
But what we talked about is that in the Super 7, it started with what we call pre-opening.
So the before.
Yeah. I know the wording. See, that's what I'm saying. The wording is a little bit different, and we never did, get in. We should have, but we didn't. But it's the pre-opening. And then once you start talking to people about it, conceptually, you're like, now we may change those words. Why they latch on and they like, we like the words. And we're like, but that's the time that, and this is a semi-universal, any time that you are, before you even get to work.
Okay.
So, what are you, having to do? Well, maybe you have to wear, a uniform, or maybe you need to get gas in your car, or maybe you need, you got in a yelling match with your, spouse or significant other, and you need to. We used to call it Mickey Mouse. He said, "Have you ever seen Mickey Mouse frown? Have you?"
No.
No, he's always smiling.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to be with the kids.
Got it.
So it would be that kind of stuff, and then the pre-opening was when you would actually get to work, and let's say that there would be like a site coordinator, which was like an acting principal if you were to run a parallel.
Okay.
And so you would get your lesson plans ready or your supply box or whatever. And then usually they would do some kind of a gathering or a check-in. Okay, how's everybody doing? What's going on with little Johnny? Did you hear, he had an accident? You might want to call, just all of that kind of check-in. But it's just the adults.
Okay.
So you're just by yourself in the pre-opening.
Yeah.
And then in the pre-opening, you're with yourself and then all the other adults. So like at my school, we served when I was the site coordinator before I became the program manager, before I became the CEO of that, right? We had 270 youth that we served, and we had 16 adults.
Okay.
So the 16 plus myself, we would get together and do, just kind of get a check-in, make sure everybody was Mickey Mouse in it, and all that. So then you'd go into the opening, and the opening would be with you and the kids. Okay, and they would always start off with a snack or, something. Sometimes they've changed it now to where you get like supper, or different things like that. But you get a snack, but we used to always, meet them and greet them at the door and high five. And we'd have our little, you've seen that.
Yeah.
Some of these guys have a different one for each kid.
Yeah.
And so, so we would have our greeters, and then we would have, the tables where they would, check in with their actual, teacher for the day.
Yeah.
They call them program leaders. That's like the parallel of a teacher.
Yeah.
And, check in, snack, how's everybody doing? Just kind of relaxed and all that. And then you went into your first rotation after that.
Yeah.
And there's 3 different rotations, and each school would do those different. So it didn't matter, like, so one of them was a homework or an academic piece. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that was in rotation 1 with everybody, but usually not. It maybe the 4th and 5th graders would have that as a rotation, and then the club enrichment, which would have been the second rotation, maybe was sometime in the first slot.
Okay.
If that makes sense. But in the end, there were 3 of them. There was some sort of a club enrichment, sports, dance, how to draw, arts, crafts, music. I mean, whatever. The kids would vote on what they wanted to do.
Right.
When Pokemon was a big thing, they had a Pokemon club or different things of that nature. And then your homework or your academic piece was typically homework, but sometimes they would do like pull outs. Somebody was struggling with reading, they would go and get pulled out somewhere and get some extra help with that. Or sometimes we would do some academic pieces in there. There's a lot of different companies out there that have, things that are helpful in that area, for lesson planning and different things of that nature. Okay. And then the third part of the rotation was what they called healthy living or PE. So back in the day, it was just PE, some kind of physical activity.
Yeah.
And then they, got smarter and they said, well, it's really healthy living. So, mind, emotion, body, all that.
Yeah.
And so that was a component for everybody.
Okay.
And so then at the end, you would have your closing. And that was the time that you would have all of the adults and all of the kids and their parents would start to pick them up. So now you're getting the community there, right? And I should have said, too, in the opening, the thing that we used to tell them, so there was a lot of, I don't want to say hatred, but it's too strong of a word, but right, teachers at first weren't real happy with after-school programming because they had to share spots with them, shared space.
Oh, right.
And so we had people in our district that would put tape over it says no after school. And I'm like, it's not your room, number one. Taxpayers are paying for it, number 2. And we actually had one that we brought on board as an after-school professional and became a teacher who did that.
Oh.
And she didn't want anything to do with after-school programming. But when we Arnold Schwarzenegger came in, and this was for the after-school program, right? Because that was a big deal for him back in the day when he was governor. This same teacher knocked over 3 of our program leaders to get in there to, get the picture with him. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you people? Like, right? So I was in charge of the program, other than my mom's second command. I didn't even get to meet him. I'm busy, man. I was doing stuff. I was operating, whatever. But this gal's going to,
get in there.
Yeah, and no after school. She hates after school program, but yet that's how she got her first, just weird stuff like that. But so the opening, we used to say, come out with a bang, right? We talk about that with like an elevator
Yeah.
pitch or whatever. Why? That's where everybody sees you. The janitors are there, the custodians are there,
Right.
the secretaries are there, the principal's there, the vice principal, all the teachers, all the food nutrition. See, and then they go, somewhere around 4:30, depending.
Yeah.
But then, so we used to say, let's have a great communal opening and then also a great communal closing.
Yeah.
Because that's when the community would come in and,
Yes. Okay.
right? We didn't want it to just be like, hey, come pick your kids up. We want to know you. How you doing? Hey, Jim, how's your tooth?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so I believe that's 7, right? So
Yes.
pre-opening, the 3 rotations and closing.
Yep.
Right? So those are the 7.
Yep.
And then on the 8th, I already told you it's team challenge. What we
Yeah.
call team challenge.
Gotcha. And then I know you kind of, hinted, or not hinted, but said this earlier about, the Nifty 9 could go into a business or, different things like that. So was your system created knowing that it could help after school? It could help insurance business. It could help any type of business? Or how did that all work out? And is it all inclusive that this could work for a business as well?
Okay, so you just throw a bunch out.
Yeah.
I can't hear. So
Okay.
no, we were just creating this stuff for our after school program.
Yeah, okay.
We weren't business people,
Right.
right? We just were creating it for us and for our kids.
Okay.
And then when the state came in, we said, we better get a little bit more serious about what we call this stuff.
Right.
Because when you're small, I mean, even though we had 10,000 kids and 10 programs, 223 employees, adult employees, still small in the realm of, I've consulted for a nonprofit that had, probably they were serving, I don't know how many millions of kids,
Right.
and had 2,000 adults, right? So, so you figure out real fast about the deep thing versus the wide thing.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, no, but this is, for my brain, I'm like, well, wait a minute, and how we used to teach the kids when we talk about holistic instruction, will probably come back up, prior knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to take the prior knowledge of the system that I created with the Nifty 9, and now when I started doing business, well, does everybody need to be professional? Yeah. It may look a little different than it would be for a teacher in after school, right?
Right.
But you got to be professional. Does everybody have to be safe? Yes.
Yeah.
Now, does everybody have to guide behavior? Well, if you're the boss, you might have to guide the behavior of your right. So we would run parallels as needed.
Yeah.
But not all of it would actually fit into a business system. But a lot of it would. But no, we were just like one thing at a time, and then it was like, what's going on out here? And then it was like, what's going on? And 10 businesses later, and blah blah. Then we can plug into anything. But most of it's I'd say 70% of it's pretty universal.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So then we're gonna, start with the exemplary performance with the Nifty 9.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into the quality programming.
Yeah.
And I know that what you have is the first 3, which is the trilogy. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we, at first we just had stuff, like detergent, Tide detergent.
Okay.
And then we packaged it, and we said, if we only get like one shot at somebody, we probably should teach them those 3.
Okay.
Right? Because that would be the teacher. Because if you can do those 3,
Yeah.
probably in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was, managing the environment, the behavior guidance, and then positive discipline.
Gotcha.
So those 3 right there, if you could do those pretty well, again, like we talked about in some of the other videos and stuff, you've probably got 50 to 70% of your life covered.
Covered. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So will you discuss what managing the environment looked like and how you taught that?
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll discuss later, within the quality programming, how does that fit in. But basically, it was making sure that you were getting ready. So you and I are sports guys.
Yeah.
I give sports analogies and Bible on it. So with the sports, managing the environment was making sure that I went out and make sure there was no potholes, or holes or gopher holes or, glass, or even, looking around and making sure there was no dogs or... You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're managing your environment to make sure that you put those kids in the best possible place
Right.
so that they can be successful at whatever you were doing. So if you're playing baseball or soccer or football or whatever it is,
Yeah.
so you would manage the environment, and you could do the same thing indoors, outdoors, in your car. I mean, right?
Right. It's just all the time.
It can become universal, but manage your environment to the best of your abilities.
Gotcha. And then will you now talk about behavior guidance?
Yeah, so we have several strategies, but like I've told you about with closing, I
Yeah.
like the alternative close. So I used to like what we would call the proximity behavior guidance piece.
Okay.
And so you be talking with 20 people, teaching them or whatever.
Yeah.
And Joe over here is acting like a fool, right?
Right.
He's throwing stuff at Sally and whatever. And so most teachers would stop, and I'm sure you remember this.
Yeah.
Joe, now you knocked that, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what they'd say. So you own the monkey, you're directing and telling, whatever. So, just like I'll kind of do with you, the audio won't be able to see this, but how are you feeling right now?
Yeah.
You don't like that?
Yeah.
So that's what we would do. So we'd keep teaching, and we'd walk right over and get this close to the kid within an inch or so.
Right.
And then he got the picture because
Yeah.
now everything, right? But I could still keep teaching.
Right.
So that was one of the favorite things. But
Okay.
there's a lot of behavior guidance things you can do. You can have, do you remember, like, I don't know, do you guys ever do money or you put the marbles in or the check marks as
yeah.
a team? Because there was individual behavior guidance, but then there was also the team,
Yeah.
and then, now you got Johnny, who's the biggest kid in the room, going, hey,
Right.
I'm trying to get my pizza at the end or whatever.
Right.
If you're not, cleaning up or acting like a fool or whatever, you're going to get a knuckle sandwich, that kind of
Right.
stuff. But that's the basic premise of it is, how do you continue to be able to do your teaching? It doesn't interrupt the flow,
Yeah.
but yet you're still guiding that kid in his behavior.
Okay, gotcha. And then the last one of the trilogy is positive discipline.
Yeah, so a lot of we know what negative discipline looks
Yeah,
like, right? It's always
absolutely.
punitive, it's always punishment, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm a big believer in, as you know, is prevention versus intervention.
Yeah.
And so we would set a lot of things up. Well, I to be honest with you, I didn't have that problem.
Okay.
I would guide behavior, and that's as far as it ever went with me. Right? Like, I didn't have to discipline anybody.
Yeah.
But we always thought, man, how can we do this a little bit different?
Right, because not everyone is like you.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
right, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because I could look at you and you'd stop.
Yeah.
Right. And so everybody's different. That's the art and the
Yeah.
science, as we've talked about. And so what would happen? Like, one of our favorite things was you're on an in-house timeout.
Okay.
And now some people say, well, that could be negative, right? That could be not a positive discipline, but a discipline. No, because the way we presented it was, I think you just need a little time to think about what you might do differently in the future in this situation.
Yeah.
So we would do an in-house. They would go to, not a bing bag because that'd be a reward,
Right.
but, go over wherever in the corner, whatever. You don't have to face the corner. That's discipline.
Right.
Right, like, you're being punished. Face the corner. Come on.
Right.
But just go over and let's think about it. And then they'd come back and they'd have to tell a partner or a buddy, or if you weren't, as the teacher or program leader wasn't busy, what they might do differently next time in that situation.
Okay. Yeah.
So then we had another thing that we would do, which would be an out of the house or out of the room timeout, which was the same thing, but now you're out of the room.
Right. Now you're isolated.
Yeah, now you're isolated. There's nothing else to distract you.
Yeah.
Give you some real chance to think about it.
Yeah.
Right. And then what we would do is we would, send them. We'd have reciprocal teacher buddies. We'd send them to the other room,
Okay.
and then they would, maybe do, an essay or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But it was real positive. It wasn't like, I'm going to call your mom and they're going to spank your butt or,
Right.
Stuff like that. We tried to keep it positive as we can. Not because, look, if you need to get slapped around, then you need to get slapped around. So it wasn't like, let's give everybody an 8th place, participation trophy.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's stupid.
Yeah.
Even my mom, 74 years old, she said, we have screwed up a generation. And my mom is so smart
Yeah.
when it comes to education, period, and, all that.
Yeah.
She said, we have screwed up a generation because of 8th grade or 8th place participation trophies.
Yeah.
Hey, that's strong words. But I'm telling you, if you met my mom, G-Ma, she'd get ready to come out with some stuff. She's spot on, man. She doesn't miss much.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If she was a baseball player, she'd be making about $100 billion a year. She'd be hitting 900.
Yeah, that's true. You have any good fun stories from anything in the trilogy, whether that's positive discipline or managing the environment or behavior guidance?
Yeah, I got a bunch, but the funniest one. So I'm managing the environment. We were playing a sport, and and I get it all set up for the kids and everything. Well, I missed the spot, but guess who? I didn't break my ankle, but guess who twisted their ankle real good in there? Yeah, me.
Oh, you. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, that's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do everything right and do it with the kids. I'm probably 25 years old and get it all situated, make sure, nobody does that.
Yeah.
How many coaches do you know that actually
Right.
did any of that, right? So I do it all right. And then I'm backing up, looking at a player. So I don't remember the exact situation.
Yeah.
And I fall in and sprain my ankle.
Oh.
And it was like, it's like those things we talk about. You get everything set up perfect, everything's nice, and it still falls apart.
Somehow.
But I always look at it and say, well, what if you didn't do everything nice? The chances are it's probably going to fall apart more times in a worse way or a higher percentage or whatever. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. I was like, gosh, dang, man.
Now we're going to move to what you call the Fab Four. So it's those three that we just discussed.
Yeah.
And we're now adding safety. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And so was that because that's the next most important that you guys felt? If you
Yeah.
had a certain amount of time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I mean, really, that's probably number one.
Right.
I mean, right. I always say, well, if you don't have the kid because he's lost, then probably you can't teach him nothing, and you're not going to be able to guide his behavior, anything else. But that's, I'm not saying it's a given that people are safe, but probably it's a given that they're safe to the point where they'll be there. Yeah. And so the trilogy made better sense in that fashion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, gotcha.
But what we would do with safety is like line of sight, little things, right? Okay. So let's say that I had a group of 30 kids. And so let's say that the majority of the kids were to the north of where I was at, okay? And so if I turn my back to the majority of the kids to help the one kid, then I don't have line of sight. I can't see them. That's not safe. Because if somebody comes through the door, right, I don't know what's going on. Yeah. Or what about if we're walking? So how many of your teachers would walk in front?
All of them. Or not all of them.
Yeah, most of them walk in front, and whatever you're doing behind. Some would maybe even walk in the back, which was better, right? Or we would tell people that they could walk backwards. But as long as you can see the kids, now you got to be careful because you can, hurt yourself. Yeah. But position yourself to where you always have a line of sight to where that's at. And obviously, there's a bunch of other safety factors. Yeah. Scissors. I mean, there's blah blah. But that was the one thing that came up a lot is, why would you turn your back on the students? Right. Why would you turn your back on 29 to help one? Yeah. Right? We would never no animal would ever do that. Yeah. No, right? We don't do that. People don't do that, but that's, we get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. And so, kind of interesting, both managing the environment and safety kind of run hand in glove or, shoe and foot and that's something you probably do it at all times from opening to, or, from pre-open to close to keep the kids safe. Is that true?
Yeah. So I think also what you're talking about is informally and formally. Yeah. Right. So informally, of course. Right. So as I've told you many times, I read the room. Yeah. Well, we teach them to read the room or the outside or whatever. I mean, we consulted in some pretty crazy areas, South Central and different stuff like that. Yeah. And, I mean, we've had situations to where we barely got everybody safe because of pit bulls, and we were on it. Right. Right. And they were chasing us down, but we always tried to have our prevention strategy. How do we do this? How do we do this in an orderly fashion where we all get to be safe, not where just the one guy gets to be safe and he's knocked over 7. And, how do we do that? Or we've had, many a time where we had a complete lockdown situation because there was a shooter on campus. Yeah. So when you're talking, I mean, there's safety. Right. Right. Like, hey, don't, cut your finger on the, the paper. Yeah. And then there's like safety, right? So when you take a look at all of those things, it puts it in the forefront of your mind formally, but also informally we're saying, hey, always be on the lookout. Walking down the halls, right? I mean, I used to tell them before I ever, like in the, let's say, in the pre-opening, as I'm driving there, I'm looking around for dogs or parents that are fighting, or I don't know.
Right. Anything.
Yeah, anything can happen.
Brings something.
Yeah, I'm scanning the area, just like I would do anywhere. A lot of people do that. I think especially a lot of males, because we're in our caveman era. Of got to be protective and rah rah, all that stuff.
Yeah. And so I don't know if I said that originally, but that was what you guys called the Fab Four.
Yes.
And then now we move into the Fantastic Five.
Yeah.
So it's those four with now professionalism.
Yes.
At number 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we said, that's kind of the start of the day. That's that Mickey Mouse situation. Yeah. That's dressing, because they used to have the lanyards with their face on there and stuff. Now it's even more complex or better security or whatever. I know when I go to consult, I got to whip out my driver's license. We used to be able to walk through the back, right? Yeah. But life's changing, and our society's changing. But yeah, just being professional, having a good attitude, dressing, the correct spot. We used to talk to people as you're walking up, say hi to people. Hey, how's it going, principal? Because they're all nervous and whatnot. Like, don't do that. Like, hey, Joe, the janitor. Hey, Sally, the secretary. Hey, Timmy, the teacher. Hey, right, or what's up, or
something.
Yeah, do something so that I used to tell like we've talked about. Yeah, you get more bees with honey, but on top of that, if you do something wrong and you mess up, and these people like you because you've said hi, or you gave them an M&M or whatever it is. When you mess up something, you have a better chance that they're going to have your back than if you don't do those things. So just be professional, across the board. And we think that's extremely helpful. And if you do those 5 things, now we're at like 85%.
Right. Now this is maybe going to sound funny, or maybe it won't sound funny, but obviously everyone has bad days.
Yeah.
No matter if you're 8 years old.
Except for Mickey Mouse.
Except for Mickey Mouse.
And maybe he does, but he won't show you.
Yeah. And so I'm assuming that over the years that you did this, you ran into an adult that wasn't being professional. They had their Mickey Mouse on. Yeah. So did you positive discipline, or did you do the behavior guidance in the way? Okay.
Same way, right? Way. Doesn't matter whether it's right.
Yeah.
So it's just like I say with a 1 and 2 year old as they're starting to walk.
Yeah.
See what most parents do. Let's say the table's in the living room, and you've got the magazine rack, and you got a couple candles and a couple other decorative items.
Yeah.
And little baby Sally's coming over, and they either take them all off, or they move them to the middle so she can't reach them. Don't do that. Is life going to do that for you? Right? So when you're out there driving a car, is everybody going to get off the road for you?
I wish.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But so we're teaching them to say redirect, because most people, not only do they not do that, or they do that, then they do the worst thing. They say no 500 times. Right. And it's like, no, redirect your kid to the Legos or to what you're wanting them to do, their sippy cup, or whatever the case may be. Redirect them, but you got to leave life the way that it is and teach them to conform.
Yeah.
I know my kids, not you, but my kids used to come home, after 6th grade. Well, they're starting to change that now, and even back when you were a kid. Back in the day, as an elementary student, you had one teacher the whole day.
Yeah.
And then later on, you found out, then they'd go, oh, well, you guys go over here for math, and this lady will do the English language arts. Or, a lot of the people that didn't want to do PE, you do PE and we'll do these. Yeah. Well, back in the day, it wasn't like that, right? So, and I think, out of all the things that the K-12 system has not got correct, that was one of those things that said, hey, find somebody that can really care about the kids and love on them, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But then all of a sudden you get to junior high. Now you got
8 teachers.
Yeah, you got 8 teachers. And so my kids would come home and be like, yeah, well, man, Mr. Whatever's a jerk. I go, good. He go, what do you mean good? He's a jerk. Dude, do you think you're going to meet jerks in your life?
Right.
Yeah, well, good. Now you'll know how to deal with them. If you never met a jerk and you only had somebody that always loved you and always cared for you and always, guess what? You're gonna be screwed up one of these days. Yeah. It's gonna bite you in the butt. So I said, well, this lady's too hyper. Good. Well, this lady's subdued. Well, good. Well, right. We want you to have different personalities. Now, I don't know if the K-12 education system did that on purpose, but I think that's one thing that they did get right, right? Because a lot of things they didn't, like grouping you because of age, not based off ability. That was not smart.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. And so, well, there was the second part. What was your go-to when? Was it during the pre-opening that you would say, "Hey, I noticed that you're not, in the best moods right now. Let's turn it around."
Yeah.
So where did that come along?
Yeah, so you just redirected me. There you go. So I like that way you said that too, because it made me think of two things, both and.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we would redirect in the moment, and sometimes we would bring them in and talk about it.
Okay.
And it's like what I say with, I always use the analogy about the kid going in the street.
Yeah.
And the kid that's playing in the tree that might fall out and break his arm.
Mm-hmm.
If he's going in the street, that's death. So get on him right now.
Yeah.
So if we thought it was death, so to speak, then we would say something right there, like a safety thing or something.
Okay.
Like, hey, If not, we'd bring him aside, like the kid that falls out of the tree and breaks his arm. Everything. Oh, that's terrible. But natural consequences is one of the greatest teachers. So we would bring them in and we would talk to them. Hey, and then obviously we were trying to prevent everything by giving them good training beforehand. So then we could plug them back into that. Hey, remember that training that we had about behavior guidance, and we said we don't stop doing blah blah blah. We walk up by the kid. Yeah. Let's try that. Let's try the proximity.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but we would do both and all the above.
Yeah. Okay.
We're always teaching.
Gotcha. And then just any fun or funny stories that you have just from teaching professionalism, or something that someone did to if they had a bad day, they knew right when I walked in. Okay, Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. Well, I don't have one that comes to mind on that, but I have one with with the way they dressed.
Oh, okay.
So the one person, and this happened like 4 times a year, same person.
Uh-huh.
Her name's not Cindy, but she would be dressing in the dark because she get up real early, and she'd put on like 2 different pair of shoes or 2 different socks. Now that's popular now, or red and green.
Yeah.
But back in the day, that wasn't popular. So I mean, that's not a big deal, but it's the first thing that kind of was funny to me.
Yeah.
We'd walk in and we go, "Did you dress in the dark?" "Yeah." "Why?" "Well, I don't know. Have you looked at your socks or your shoes or whatever?" And so that was fun.
Yeah.
And especially with her, because she had like 20 different pair of Crocs, the exact same Crocs with 20 different colors.
Right.
So it was like
she was a little ahead of her time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Trendsetter.
That's what we should do. We should just look at weird stuff and go, "Oh, okay," or what we consider to be weird, and go, "Oh, that's a new trend." Yeah.
And so now we'll move to the complete Nifty 9.
Okay.
And so, again, it's the 5 that we discussed.
Yeah.
And now we're going to add direct and tell.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say these in order, but direct and tell.
Yeah, but can we just start one at a time then? Because you know how my brain goes, or no?
So we'll start with direct and tell.
Okay. So the direct and the tell is the lowest level of, I don't even call it teaching, I call it telling.
Yeah.
For obvious reason. But the difference is the direct is not only you're telling them, but you're telling them exactly what to do. So if I said to you, "Hey, you need to quit playing with the basketball."
Yeah.
Okay, or let me say that better. "You need to put the basketball up."
Mm-hmm.
"No, not with 2 hands, with 1 hand." "No, you don't do it like that. You don't roll it over. You pick it up." So you're not only telling them what to do, but you're directing them on how to do it. So that's why we say direct is really bad.
Yeah.
Right? Because who owns it? You do.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, for goodness sake. But even telling is really hard, right?
Okay.
So go put the Legos up. 3 seconds later, go put the basketball up. 3 seconds later, push your chair in. So you're telling them, and so you're exhausted. And we used to watch these people do it. So we would say direct and telling versus questioning techniques.
Okay.
So the questioning techniques would come into where we would say things like one like, I don't say command, but a question that would cover 4 or 5 things. Mm-hmm. So let's say you were beginning to transition from indoors to go to PE.
Yeah.
So you'd stop everybody. You'd have what we call an attention getter. I used to go, ready, and they go hit, and they'd have to instantly be quiet because that was a safety thing too.
Yeah.
Attention getter, I said, this isn't an ego thing that you're in. I said, because I didn't play around. Like, you're instantly there. Because if I saw somebody that was whatever, do this, now we got to get in a direct and tell mode because it's an emergency. Yeah. So we get their attention, and I'd say, okay, hey, we're getting ready to transition from here to outside. What do you guys think would be important to make sure that transition goes smoothly? Little Johnny raised his hand, said, I need to push in my chair. Little Sally said, I need to clean up my mess. Little Fred said, whatever they say. Right. Now remember, I've already played King and Queen of the World, so I know exactly where they're at. And so then I say, okay, well, what about dumping the trash? Or what about picking stuff off the floor? Whatever it is. Right. And so now we get all of that. And I say, okay, we're all clear on what you guys said needs to happen?
Right.
Okay, what's a good time frame? See, I twisted on them.
Yeah.
What's a good time frame for that to happen? And they go, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever they'd say. I say, okay, hop to it. And then I'd give them a countdown, at 10 and whatever. I wasn't paying attention at the time. If they said 3 minutes, it could have been 7 minutes. It could have been after a minute. Yeah. Okay, 30 seconds. Everybody's like, whoop, right? They're on it. Yeah. And so I would think that that's a big difference between directing, which is really bad, telling, which isn't much better, and doing a questioning technique to get them to think and take the ownership and all of that. And when you tell them, it's not good to begin with. If you don't tell them everything, they miss stuff. Right. If you do it correctly, they'll do all that and probably come up and ask you like, hey, what else can I do for you?
Right. Got it.
Right. So it's very powerful, the difference between the two. And think about with parents at home, or what about if you're a businessman or an entrepreneur? It doesn't matter. Yeah. You can do the same thing with everybody. It's like I tell my wife, not you, Susan, but my other wife, I'm like, quit directing and telling. Mm-hmm. Do you think these guys are ever going to drive on their own? Do you think they're going to have to make a decision about drinking or drugs or sex or, whatever? Yeah. Well, if you plan on being there, telling them what they're no, don't do that. No, put this on, put the ring on. No, don't do any of that.
Got it. So, I know that we talked about the baby before and, telling them no all the time. They hear it all the time. So then when they get older, they don't never really pay attention. Would you say that's the same thing if you direct and tell all the time, that's all they ever hear? So when it is in that danger moment of, now I got to direct and tell, it's not as serious.
You got it. Okay. You got it. That's exactly right. And so we get desensitized to stuff. Yeah. Right? So I used to, when I would teach, I was loud anyway because I'm a PE teacher, goodness sakes, and I'm loud and whatever. So we used to have certain things where, that kind of came into play, like culturally and stuff. So there was a certain culture at the time where it was disrespectful for you to look at the adult in their eyes, right? Oh. The kid to look at. Yeah. So I'm like, talking to this kid, and they're not looking at me in the eyes, and I'm getting frustrated. Right. Yeah, I'm 23 years old. I don't know about cultural stuff to the, I'm immature. I don't understand yet. Yeah. Right. And so, and so I went and talked to the council. I'm like, yeah, this little kid. They go, dude, that's a cultural thing, you idiot. Right. I was like, oh, shoot, I feel bad. So I went to apologize to the little kid, and I said, hey, but again, understand there's differences. So maybe at your house and your culture, but you're now at school and you're with me, you can look at me square in the eye. That's a sign of respect, not the other way. Right. So you got to learn, right? Because these were middle school kids, most of them. They were old enough to understand. Yeah. So I think that, all of that is critically important. And it goes back to what? Traditions. Yeah. Right? And so if your traditions that you are doing, your habits, your customs, all those things we talk about, great. But if they're not, you might want to consider changing them. Right. Yeah.
Got it. And then now we'll go into holistic instruction, which is teaching them how to teach. Is that correct?
No, it'd be yes. Okay. Yeah. I was thinking the kids. Oh, okay. Yeah, you teach the adult how to actually teach. Okay. So we used to always, kind of break it down into threes for them, like an opening, a middle, and a closing. Okay. So we would say in the opening, start with their prior knowledge. Yeah. Okay, give them whatever you're doing. Hey, we're going to do peanut butter and jelly sandwiches today. So what do you guys know about peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Okay. Right? You're going to get every cockamamie thing out there, right? Yeah. And so they're going to go through and say whatever they say. I like to put it on the board because kids feel all good. You know, like I'm the one that said you cut it diagonally versus in squares, or that kind of stuff. So you find out their prior knowledge, and you say, okay, great, I understand. So you got, here's what we're doing. Kind of set that in the opening, and then prior knowledge. That's your opening.
Yeah.
So then you go into the teaching part of it. So you're gonna teach them, and you're gonna teach them some more.
Right.
So you're gonna tell them first, kind of like what we do, touch the bases.
Yeah.
So hey, we're gonna talk about our bread. We're gonna talk about our supplies. We're gonna talk about the jelly. We're gonna talk about the peanut butter. Whatever.
Yeah.
Just touch it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna go into depth and teaching now, and then you're gonna say, okay, on top of all that, I'm gonna demonstrate. So the first one is you're going to teach them.
Yeah.
The second one, you demonstrate. Remember, that goes back to the gradual release responsibility.
Yeah.
I show you, you don't do anything.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So then what happens is that we say, still kind of in the meat of it, now you're going to practice.
Right.
So that's kind of how that's going to roll out.
Okay.
I'm going to teach and demonstrate, and then you're going to go practice.
Got it.
So they're practicing, blah, 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 all the above. And so the next part is what I call teachable moments.
Mm-hmm.
So I stop everybody. Ready? Hit. They're instantly there. I said, hey, I want to talk to you guys about something, because I saw little Johnny here, and he happened to put the peanut butter on one side and the jelly on the other. And we didn't talk about that in the opening when I asked for prior knowledge. What do you know about it? So let's talk about that now. Does it really matter? We figure out, no, it doesn't matter. Still going in your mouth. It's going to come out your butt. Whatever, right? So we would talk about all of that. We call those teachable moments.
Okay.
And then at the end, what do you think we do? We do a review and a reflection, right?
Got it.
So we review. Hey, here, the review is what I think are the top 3 things that they should know.
Okay.
Okay? Here are the top 3 things that you should know. And then in the reflection is their things. Okay.
Okay.
So they would say, my confirmation was this, or my aha was this, or my tweak was that.
Got it.
But at the very end, all that madness, and this is a very sad story, and I'm not happy about it, but we learned, that's an activity.
Yeah.
That's it. We did an activity with the kids. But if you do not make that activity a learning opportunity, then you have failed as a teacher. And let me tell you how we failed. So we actually were doing peanut butter and jelly before, so it worked out good. I remember I used that as an analogy. Yeah. And there was I think a 5th or a 6th grader, I can't remember. So we taught them how to make peanut butter and jelly, and real good at it and everything. And about a week later, we found out that her, I think she was 3 or 4 years old. Her sister was starving, and so CPS went in and did their thing and whatever. And we found out there was peanut butter and jelly available, and the bread was available for the kid. Yeah. But because we only made an activity, that 5th and 6th grader or 6th grader wasn't able to say, I didn't know that I could be feeding my child, knowing full well that my parents aren't doing it. They never thought that. Yeah. So we always wanted to say, let's take it a step further. How might this key learning or this confirmation tweak, aha, whatever, how might you use this in the real world?
Right, to tie it in.
That's right. Now it becomes extremely powerful. So not only are we solidify their learning, how do you use that out there? Because school is the practicing ground for the real world. Yeah. Right? Just like they say, you learn to read when you're real young so that you can read to learn the rest of your life, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah. I think you did right.
Yeah, you learn to read so that you can read to learn, right? And so it's that kind of stuff that seems, kind of elementary and simple, but it's missed. Right. And so we're going now, we start stringing part of the Nifty 9 together. Yeah. You can instruct well, and plus you can debrief and tie it together. Whoop! Yeah. Whoop, whoop! Right? Got it. And so we say that, probably we do more of a reflection there because we do more of a debrief as the actual Nifty 9. Nice. Yeah, but to me, they're one the same. They're handled a little differently.
Okay, got it. And so before we get into debrief, we have transitions.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, so, right, this is another thing people just struggle at. So, it was really cool for us because we were able to beat all this stuff ourselves, over a long period of time, you know. And so you forget, right? And so transitions, we go all up and down the state, all over, and even throughout the nation. And it was like, dude, people don't know how to they don't know how to do a transition.
Okay.
So let's first define it.
Yeah.
It's the closing down of one activity or hopefully learning opportunity
Yeah.
and opening up another, right? That's
Right.
as simple as it is.
Yeah.
So again, we go back to what we were talking about earlier. So let's go with the opening. So, we're going from the opening and we're going to go into our first rotation, which we'll say was the club enrichment, right?
Yeah.
So we got to close this down. So, hey, ready hit or, grandma used to do a lot of.
Okay.
Or you could do lights off and on, or you could do SpongeBob, SquarePants, because we used to ask them, what would you want to do? And they would, they do something like that. SpongeBob, SquarePants, because that's more ownership. I told them on the ready hit, that was a non-negotiable for me.
Right.
And I just said, this is what I'm doing. This is my 10% of the time where I make the decision.
Yeah.
It was just, I needed to be able to have 270, and it just worked.
Yeah.
But everybody had variations of that. But anyway, can you tell me that question again?
I'm talking about transition.
Yeah. So we got, hey, we're getting ready to close down the opening. So what are some things that need to happen to get this closed down correctly? And we're getting ready to go into the other one. And so let's say we close it down and we get them in line.
Yeah.
Right. So we do that and we get them in line and say, hey, we're getting ready to go into da-da-da. What do you think things would be important? So it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now it's getting them to where they're making all the decisions. Dude, at the end of when we would meet with people and consult with them, do you know that there were times when we would bring in heavy hitters like, people that maybe want to donate or whatever, and they go, where are the adults at? Because we eventually had the kids running the program.
Oh.
They run the whole program, and the adults would be on the side, and they wouldn't even notice them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we call like the leadership.
Yeah.
So we had a student that was the acting principal or site director.
Right.
We had ones that would teach, whatever.
Right.
This sixth grader would teach a sixth grader because they were like a ninth grader. This sixth grader would teach a fourth grader, right? So, that was the ultimate goal is we always say work our way out of a job, right? And so on and so forth. But that was transitions. It was real simple. Close this down, and then maybe there's a little transition to the transition of opening this up.
Right.
Or you could do it all at once. I mean, there's variations of it.
Got it. And then to finish it off, you always did the debrief.
Always. And so now we used to do it two ways. We would do, again, we kind of clumped it, but we would do a review if we had to go real quick or just a check-in. So we could do it as, if we were running behind for some reason and we just had to go real quick, we would say, hey, everybody, we want to know what kind of time you had. Thumbs up, side, or down. Right? So it's just a check-in. Or, hey, if you thought that a red shirt on Monday was correct, thumbs up, right? So if you had to be quick, we would just do what we called a check-in.
Right.
If you had more time, you would do the review, which would be very specific in, hey, your confirmation was this. You'd have a couple of them share out. My tweak was this, or my aha was that, right? And so they would share out a couple of them. But everybody was thinking about it because they didn't know who was going to be called on.
Right, so it was,
Yeah, so you're right. It's just like what I used to say, and remind me about the debrief, so I want to go more specific on that. But, I used to watch some of the practices where people would go to you, and it's like, dude, 80% of the people are standing doing nothing. Why would you do that? So we wanted to always keep everybody involved.
Moving involved.
That's right. Yeah. So when I was coaching, there's nobody sitting around, right? So if you were the group playing, then sometimes I'd have you watch for schematical understanding. But other times you'd be working on your skills or, shooting or doing whatever. Then we'd rotate, people. Yeah, it was going like this. And then the last part of it is a debrief, and we did that very specific. And do you think that I explained the reflection correctly? Because sometimes I go a little fast because we've already talked about it before.
Yeah.
You think we're okay there?
Yeah.
So then the debrief was when you had a lot of time. And I used to say at least one debrief at the end of the day, and several reviews and several reflections, and maybe several more check-ins, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, so if you've done that 10, 20, 15 times as a whole, but I said before you leave, the kids leave, I want to do a debrief. And so the way we would do that is, what was your key learning or learnings for the day, kids? So you give them a minute or so. How might you use that in your personal life? And so they would, say, well, what do you mean my personal life? Anytime that it's not your professional life, they go, what's professional life?
Right.
I said, it's called school for you guys.
Yeah.
It's called work for your mom and dad. So how might you use this in your personal life? And they go, Okay, my key learning was red shirt on Monday. Well, how much use that in your personal life? Well, if I wear a red shirt to church, then people like it. Whatever they're going to say.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, well, how much use that in a professional manner? Well, if I wear red shirts, I stand out, and it's better safety for the kid. Whatever.
Right.
And then I would say, okay, and then we would twist it on them, right? And we say, okay, so are you committed to do what you said you're going to do in each of those areas?
Yeah.
And what's the time frame and the deadline for that? And we figured if they said, like, you and I've talked about this before. Oh, 2 weeks from now. No, you won't. Just like an appointment.
Right.
No, you won't.
You gotta,
Yeah, if it's not within 72 hours, you do it, you lose it. Yeah, so that's how we did that, and that solidifies the learning. So what we're trying to do is the learning on the front end. We're trying to squeeze it in by doing some of those things and the learning opportunity, right?
Yeah.
The closing, the review, we're squeezing it. And at the very end, we're really solidifying it. And we used to tell them, if your mom asked you on the way home, what did you do today? And you tell them nothing, we are going to get you the next day. You should tell them what your key learning was, your confirmation week. And so we would have teachers that would come out and watch what we would do. They've been teaching for 10 years. And I used to bet them. I used to win so much. I never lost a bet. They go, my kindergartner can't do that. I go, oh, how much you want to bet?
Right.
We bet, lunch or whatever. Instantly, I'd go in. Hey, what was the key learning? They go, I don't know what that is. Say, oh, well, what'd you like the best? Oh, I like the color. I like the. Oh, really? How could you use that at your house? Well, what do you mean? Well, I don't know. Do you ever help your dad pay? So we would go through this, and at the end, the teacher would be like, that is so awesome. So it was really cool that we were able to, I always say, what kind of leader are you? When you can push from the middle, meaning you don't have positional title.
Yeah.
That's when you're a great leader. Well, we were able to push the K-12 educators based off the stuff that we would do. Because the first graders would go, hey, teacher, how come we don't debrief in here in K-12 education?
Right.
Right? And so then they'd come back, what is this debrief stuff? Or what is this?
Yeah.
And then they'd do it, and it was like, man, this is amazing. We're like, yeah, duh.
Yeah. Got it. And so then that completes the Nifty 9.
Yes.
And then we move into quality program.
Yes.
Which is how you structured your day. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically.
Basically, okay. And so I know you discussed already the quality program. Do you want me to go through and say, hey, how did you specifically do it, or do you want me to go into my second line of questioning?
I think maybe go with that, and then we'll save that for the second video, maybe.
Okay. Yep.
What do you think?
Sounds good.
Yeah, it seems like the flows that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So then, with the pre-opening, what did that look like for you guys? Like, where did that start? Where did that end?
Well, it starts from technically the time you wake up until the time you actually are on campus.
Okay.
Right? In that case.
Okay.
So, there's a lot of pre-up stuff going on. You got to, get ready. You got to eat. You got to shower. Right? So it's not just, we didn't want people just to think about, you're only getting ready for work. We put that as your whole life.
Yeah.
What do you need to do? I need to pay the bills. I need to blah, 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 both personal and professional. So when we would train them in what we call competency, which is this specific thing to do this.
Right.
But we do capacity, which would help you in your whole life. Yeah. Right?
Okay.
So, it didn't matter what profession you were in or if you had 2 jobs or whatever. It's the time from you, for the kids, they had a pre-up. From the time that they woke up until the time they stepped foot on that campus.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And technically, it was actually not just stepping foot on the campus. It was actually to wherever your destination was. So, if to get into your pre-up, which would be the classroom or the meeting place or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So technically, it's a little further than just stepping on campus.
Got it. And then you moved into the pre-opening.
Yes.
Which was when... What again?
So that's when the lead adult or the facilitator would, meet with the people. But prior to that, that's when the people would be getting, crossing T's and dotting I's. I got to get extra crayons from yesterday. I've got to get extra scissors. I've got to get extra supplies. I got to get my lesson plans right. Maybe they watched a video. Consult for Kids has 400 videos. I got to watch a video because I didn't know how to do that very good. Oh, yeah. oh, I walk over to them and I keep teaching on behavior guide, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So they would do that. But at the end, they would do, the lead dog, so to speak,
Yeah.
would do a check-in with them and just see, how you doing personally, how you doing professionally. We do like mini OTJs or just a check-in or, hey, I needed to give you, some understanding today. So the principal was very upset that in room 4, whatever. I mean, communication, calendar, upcoming events, and just trying to get everybody on the same page.
And that was on a daily basis as well?
Every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So this whole Super 7 or quality program in general was every day, other than the Elite 8 was once a week.
Yeah, so all of those sections were there, and then we just added the additional section because there's an extra hour or so.
Got it. Okay. And then you had the opening.
Yeah.
And that's now where the adult is with the kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what we would do is there were some things that the adults had to do, count the snacks and do different things of that nature. But we always had a couple of greeters. So when they walked in, again, like we said, high five. We want them to really understand the transition. Hey, you're transitioning from the instructional day to after school day, and this is a different environment, a different world, a different whatever.
Yeah.
So we'd high five, do all that stuff. Then they'd go to their table, and then the snacks were distributed. They'd take roll, and then they would do some kind of a check-in. Hey, how, thumbs up, sideways down, or how's it going? Or hey, we're gonna sing to Jill today, or whatever.
Got it.
And so they would do their group stuff. So we'd do it with them individually. We'd do it with them as a group, and then we usually had a challenge like teachers versus kids, and we would do something in there in the opening where it'd get pretty rowdy and fun. Because again, transitioning from more of this studious type day to whatever. So we would do that, and then we would do general announcements. Hey, remember this Friday we've got Terrific Tuesday coming on, or we've got Spaghetti Wednesday with your parents, or we're doing a fundraiser, whatever. Right? Get everybody on the same page. And so all of that was happening in the opening. And as I said earlier, to us, not that we were trying to put on a show for anybody, but these after-school professionals were working extremely hard, and they were being unnoticed. Right. And so we were like, hey, let's knock it out of the park. Well, you hear people screaming from the cafeteria, people come peek their head in. Like, what's going on? Yeah. And they see all this fun and excitement and high-fiving, and they're like, wait a minute, maybe we should be doing that stuff.
Got it. And so do you think it's fair to say that the kids were more excited to go to after-school program than they were to actually go to school?
Oh, you betcha.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it'd be like me asking you, hey, were you more excited to go to sports or to go from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 before sports?
Right, yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Right, got it.
Right, it's like, dude, I only went to school so I could play sports.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the only reason I went to school.
Yeah. So then we move into the 3 rotations.
Yeah.
Which, remind me what those 3 are, and then...
So let's go with my favorite, which was club enrichment. Okay. So we would call it usually enrichment for elementary kids, and then clubs for the older kids, like, middle school or junior high. Okay. Or even high school kids. But, that was whatever. I mean, we've had crazy kind of clubs. We've had skateboard clubs. We've had, of course, the norm, music, sports, dance, all of that. Yeah. But what do they call it, origami or, whatever?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what you name it, the clubs, and the kids would just pick, like, hey. This is... Yeah, and then we would find a tutor. And usually, like one time it was jiu-jitsu. We had to get, all these things from the... Yeah. But it worked out where they let him do it. Well, we didn't have a jiu-jitsu teacher. Nobody knew it. Yeah. So we brought in somebody special for that. Okay. Yeah, but it was just, it was, what I call disguised learning, which I think is the best learning. Disguised learning says, I'm going to teach you math, English, language arts, science, history, whatever, but we're going to do it while we're playing football. We're going to do it while we're playing, origami. We're going to do it, right? Because as you well know, I mean, an inverse operation means Jack Diddley squat in the real world. Yeah. But what about percentages? Is that a big deal? No. What about critical thinking? Is that a big? What about? Yeah. So we used to try to focus our kids there, but we do it in a disguised way.
Make it fun.
Yeah, we're gonna go not just fun, but it could be serious. Oh. But it was disguised. It was like, dude, did you know? At the end, we'd be like, hey, did you know you learned math? What do you mean? Well, didn't you have to measure that out? Did you add those 3 things together? Did you? Right. Did you know you problem solve? What do you mean? You know, they didn't get it.
Right.
But then you're connecting dots for them again, which is part of debriefing and reflection.
Yeah.
Help them to connect. So sometimes they can't connect their own dots. Sometimes they can.
Right.
But if not, then you connect the dots for them. And
Yeah.
they're like, huh, it's pretty good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we used to do a lot of disguise learning.
Got it. And so then after club enrichment was academic.
Yeah, our homework. So
Okay.
it would be homework help. And so we did that in a variety of ways. One of the best ways that I liked was we'd have a homework table. So the tutor, the adult, would sit here and they'd come and get their help.
Yeah.
We used to do a buddy system where the older kid or the wiser kid or whatever would help, you know, in class or cross class, you know, sixth graders. I don't have any homework. Okay, go help. You know, Miss Susie's class with little, you know, Sally or whatever, you know, in second grade.
Yeah.
Or we did other things where, you know, we would do groups and the kids would, you know, like peer to peer, you know. So we just did a variety of things. And we told the instructional day, the K-12 day, we will not be the homework Nazis. This is what we're going to do. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
We will help them, but it is not our job to make sure it's finished, this, that, and whatever.
Right.
Right? It's the job of the parent to help them ultimately.
Yeah.
Now, later on, that changed quite a bit because it got so tough for them to do it all because, you know, life's busy, right?
Yeah.
So we became more of the homework, you know, Nazis, so to speak.
Yeah.
And but we said, you know, that's not how we started out for many years. But later on, you know, we want to help. Well, we want to help the parents. We want to help the students, obviously.
Yeah.
We also want to help the teachers. So, you know, we had to bend and stuff. But at first, we're like, no, because they used to come to us and be like, not my problem. And we used to also tell the teachers, too, because we felt like homework should be like 3 or 4 problems to reinforce what you learned. If you're giving them 20, 30 problems and you haven't even taught them, it's not homework, you idiot.
Right.
So, they're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
So, why are you giving them an hour's worth of homework? I hate that.
Yeah.
You don't need an hour's worth of homework. You can do it in 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Reinforce your teaching for the day.
Yeah.
So, you know, we used to, so, you know, it was a real give and take there for a while.
Yeah.
And then other times we would do things like there would be kids that were struggling in certain subjects, and we would help them with that.
Right.
You know, or give them extra tutoring in language arts or extra, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And then you moved to healthy living,
Yeah.
which was the last of the 3 rotations.
Well, yeah, or sometimes they could stick it so one could actually be 3, 2, you know, but yeah, in the placement. But yeah, that was the last rotation, and so we used to talk about how do you eat correctly, sleep correctly, hydrate, you know, all of that stuff. But also we'd go play, right? We'd go do something.
Sharks and minnows.
Yeah, something, movement, right?
Nice.
Get them moving. And so it wasn't always about a sport because those kids were getting enrichment, but maybe it was walking or stretching or, you know, stuff like that. And we did sports too, but but most of it was just, you know, I used to tell my 8th grade kids, and we were in the ghetto. I forget the organization. I wish I'd give them a shout out, but we contacted so many years ago. We contacted them. 500 golf clubs show up on our doorstep, and the wiffle balls. And so I taught our kids how to golf. Now I don't know whether they're going to golf or not, but I know they're not going to play football forever.
Yeah.
Right. So we used to walk. You know, I say you could walk your whole life.
Yep.
You know, and golf. We used to play frisbee, play cat. You know, different things that you could do to kind of keep yourself moving and active, and not, you know, be so tied in.
Right.
So, you know, we would do that kind of stuff to be, you know, helpful.
Gotcha. And then to finalize it, you had closing.
Yeah, and that's when the parents would come, and, you know, most of the teachers and everybody was gone. You know, there would be a custodian around, and if there was a diehard principal, they'd always be around till 5 o'clock or whatever. But that's where we come in, and we made that communal. We made it fun, exciting. So we would usually do games at the end, but again, strategic games, not just an activity, but chess. Yeah. How do you get 4 moves ahead, and how do you relate that to life?
Yeah.
Right, different things of that nature. And so then the parents would come in, all of a sudden the parents start playing chess with their kid. Right. Trash talk, you know, right? But that was fun. Yeah. Because it brought the community together. Because, you know, most kids, you know, their parents are in. Come on, like we got to go, right? Yeah. And so it was cool to see, like, you know, some of the whether they're blue collar, white collar, but some of the blue collar guys, like big old
Yeah.
rough and tumble, oil field coming in,
Yeah.
looking hardened criminals, mad at the world, and then they'd be sitting there playing Rainbow Bright with their kid, or whatever. I don't know, but high fiving and stuff. And we thought, man, what a great time to be able to bring community together.
Right.
And then just tying everything up, for the next day, kind of like a transition. Yeah, because for the most part, the kids were doing their own thing.
Yeah.
A couple supervisors around, then they'd rotate. Everybody else was getting the next day ready.
Ready. Got it. So, we finished that up. In the second video, guys, we'll discuss how we put the two together between the Nifty 9 and the quality program.
Yep.
If you need to contact Brett or Coach, please do so on his social media accounts, email, and or text. You can find that information in the description below. Again, please like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit the notification bell. Thanks, and we hope you enjoyed.
Well, I guess you don't have to be good at it, but it's just,
I'm decent at it. See, I maybe beatbox. I give them a